Happy New Year, first video back of the year. I wanted to just chat about how I've learned to process my own emotions. And I'm definitely no expert at it, and this is just things that I've kind of picked up along the way. When I first started hearing about this concept of processing my emotions, I was like, but what does that actually mean to feel your emotions? And as someone who is such a deep and heavy overthinker, it would be so easy for me to intellectualize my emotions, but to feel my own emotions, especially coming from this very strict Asian upbringing where you were kind of taught to shove your emotions away. It was pretty hard. I'm naturally a very sensitive person. Growing up, I was taught to shut down that side of myself. Relearning how to sit with my emotions has also just taught me how to be with my innate sensitivity. I have a lot of water in my chart. I'm a Pisces moon and I've got Cancer in my sun sign. Trying to dampen that sensitivity was really not it. Like one way or another, it was going to come back out. I was going to therapy for quite a few years. This video is by no means shitting on therapy at all. I think it is a really beautiful and powerful thing. It really was that beginning point of my healing journey. But personally, talk therapy only got me so far. I spent quite a while playing around with the different modalities of therapy. I tried the CBT, I did the ACT, dove a little bit into schema therapy. It eventually got to a point where it just felt like I was rehashing my past over and over again. I'm someone who's been taught to live in my head. It got to a point where my ego was telling me that I was very good at therapy, in the sense that when I noticed these patterns within myself, then I was able to very quickly figure out where that pattern came from. I could very quickly be like, oh, that was something from childhood, or that was something from the relationship that I had with my mum, whatever it was. And it was almost like I was very proud of myself, of how I got to that point. But the tension remained within my body. It wasn't until I started integrating in all of these other holistic practices that I felt like things were starting to click together. I was moving on from my past rather than talking over everything and feeling like I was continuously looping and looping. One of the first ways that I process these emotions is through bodily movements, to literally move and express it out. I've really been a huge fan of somatic shaking lately. I can't remember who it was, but I'll link it down below. The first time I did it, I was literally in tears, just sobbing. There was all of this stuff being cleared from my body. The thing about feeling our feelings is that we don't have to know why it's there. We don't have to know where it comes from, especially if you're an overthinker like me. I always like to try and intellectualize and jump to things and being like, oh, okay, why am I feeling this? Sometimes I'm just feeling it. Sometimes it's just these really long, deep stored emotions that need to get out. When my body releases these really long held emotions, it feels like a couple of days or maybe even weeks afterwards, my brain catches up and is like, oh, that's why we were sobbing in a yoga class, or that's why we were sobbing during that somatic shaking. And it's very soothing to know that we don't always have to intellectually know why we're feeling some way. Sometimes we just have to feel it. And honestly, as these little human beings on this earth, aren't we just really here to like feel and experience the whole spectrum of it all? Anger is an emotion that I've really been working on letting out. I find that I repress my anger, and I've been learning how to express it in healthy, safe ways. And I find that punching a pillow really helps. Like, I'll literally just go into my room, lock the door, go crazy hard on this pillow, just like punch the crap out of it, yell, scream. I normally end up crying. It feels great afterwards. I just know that by letting myself express and move in any way that I want, the anger, the feeling is literally coming up and out of my body. And I think our emotions are messengers. I imagine emotions as these like waves that are passing through us, and sometimes the waves come through and they get stuck within our body. That's when you're holding on to something. We are not our emotions move through us, kind of like a what's it called? Like a conductor for emotions. Yeah, let's go with that. The emotions pass through us. We are not our emotions. Just like this cat is passing through the screen. That's what our emotions do. They come and then they go, and it's not our job to hold on to them. The other thing that I love to do when I need to kind of feel into my emotions is yoga. Lately, I've really been into yin yoga. And yin yoga is a type of yoga where you're holding the poses for about 5 minutes, and it plunges you into like this really deep, quiet, introspective space where a lot of things can sort of come up to the surface and you literally have nowhere to go. Especially if you're in a studio, you're going to sit there and you're going to be with your emotions. Like, you can't scroll on your phone, you can't get up and leave. You literally have to sit with the discomfort and once again let those emotions come up and then move through you. The amount of times where I have cried in a yoga class, I came out of a yoga class feeling like pissed as hell, not sure why, or super emotional and I wasn't sure why. These emotions, we can't always intellectualize them, even though we try to. I am a yoga teacher and I have uploaded some yoga videos to this channel in the past. If you're keen on some yoga videos in the future, let me know. I'd be super happy to film some more and then we can practice together, maybe get into our feels together, have a good cry. I do think that our emotions get stored and stuck within our body. Back at uni, I studied engineering, which I find so funny because it just feels like this complete past version of myself, and I'm fully grateful for her for everything that she went through, but man, I have just completely let that old self really die. When I was at uni, that was literally like my peak depression, my peak anxiety, and I definitely still go through like ups and downs now, but back then it was rough. I was feeling so hopeless, had no idea what I was here on this earth for, just completely existential every single day. And that really showed up in my body. It showed up in the way that I was holding myself. My shoulders were really rounded and I always had really tight shoulders. And yes, of course, from a physical perspective, it was because I was at my desk all day, crouching and rounding over. From a more energetic perspective, the rounding of the shoulders was because I was trying to like cover my heart from the world and protect myself. And that showed up in me as like a very low sense of self-worth, guided by what other people around me were telling me to do instead of trusting and following my own heart. I don't think it's a coincidence that the release of tension in my body has aligned with finally listening to myself and what it is that truly brings me joy. The other way that I like to process my emotions is to create, and that could literally be anything. It could be journaling, which is my go-to. It's also really fun to pick up some pens or pick up some paints and literally just draw and scribble without any need for an outcome, without any need for it to turn into anything at all. The other way that I process my emotions is to literally feel it. And I think at this point we're all kind of pretty sick about Instagram carousels telling us to like feel our feelings. But honestly, it works. For me, feeling my feelings means to sit with it in meditation. I think a lot of people say that they can't meditate, but I don't think that's true. Meditation comes in so many different forms. It doesn't have to be sitting down for like 20-30 minutes. It could be going for a walk. You've got walking meditations. It could be cooking a meal and just taking your brain out of the thinking mind and putting its focus onto something else. For me personally, I like to do a sitting meditation because I feel like that's where I can fully go deep into my feelings and honestly just feel everything. I've been meditating for a while now, but there are some days where I literally just want to like get up and scroll on my phone. I think the trick is to literally sit with those urges, feel into every single sadness, every single bit of anger, every single bit of distraction, confusion, existentialism. Notice how it shows up in your body. If a feeling of anxiety comes up, rather than staying up in my mind and being like, oh, where is this anxiety coming from? I will literally bring my attention from my brain into my body and be like, okay, go to the places in your body where you feel it. It feels like a tight scribble in my chest. Sometimes it comes up as a lump in my throat. A lot of the times it comes up as a rounding in my shoulders, and so I'll have to like pull my shoulders back. Sometimes it's a swirly butterfly feeling in my stomach, but not the good kind, the nauseous kind. It's really about staying curious to how all of these emotions show up within your body, and they're not going to show up exactly the same every single time. That's part of the beauty of it, is to be like, wow, everything is so transient. Everything is so impermanent. It's here and then it's not. And even if it's uncomfortable to be with, can you stay open and curious to the discomfort of it all? Because once again, like, this is the human experience, and it's wild and it's crazy, and sometimes it feels really shitty, but like, we're in it together. We're really in it together. And the final way is to literally develop a connection to the divine. You can replace the word divine with whatever word you want to use. You can use spirit, you can use universe, you can use God. It's literally all semantics. We're all pointing back to that same mysterious source, that greater mystery of life. But I think a lot of us get too caught up in the pointing and making sure that the finger is like pointing the right way, when at the end of the day it's all the same thing. One of the ways that I love to connect to spirit is to go outside. Oh my god, sometimes I'm having like a really bad mental health day or a mental health week, and then I'll literally step outside, hang out with a tree, or stare at the birds, or even just people watch, and I'll be like, oh my god, why was I like so caught up in my head when there is this humongous world out there that is so full? I'll go and sit underneath a tree, and I'll like to close my eyes and just imagine that there's roots growing out of me down into the earth, interconnecting with that network of roots and mycelium beneath me. And then I like to imagine any blockages that I've got in my body, frustrations, anger, sadness, whatever it is, I imagine those emotions are passing through me, going down through that root system, being disintegrated back into its building blocks. In my head, I see it as like little sparkles, and then they go back down into the earth, and the earth reuses that energy. Those nutrients grow back into different trees, so it feeds the animals, and just kind of visualizing the interconnectedness of everything. I honestly do think that we are spiritual beings having this human experience, that we've come onto this earth to learn these lessons of this lifetime. We are both human and divine. I don't think that it's human or divine, it's both. And that means we can't negate our humanness, we can't deny our emotions, we can't deny our suffering, we can't deny our joys. Like, we have to feel fully into everything. But at the same time, I do believe that we are connected to like this kind of higher force, this great mystery that guides us. We have to be able to hold both at the same time, to hold that kind of density of our humanness, but to also hold that lightness of our divinity. And it's not one or the other, it's both at the same time. And living in this world right now where it can feel like there's a lot of heaviness here, we're not denying that, you know, like there's definitely things going on in the world that are quite heavy and dense, and it's not to spiritually bypass or to disregard them and be like, oh no, I'm just like a light individual, I'm just like a spiritually advanced individual. No, I think to be within that connection to your divine self is to acknowledge your humanness, to acknowledge the suffering, do what you can to alleviate the suffering of others, but then also to honor that divinity within you. If you made it to the end of this video, thanks for hanging out with me and joining in on this little yap session. If there are any ways that you've been processing your emotions that you would love to share, please comment down below. I love reading all of the comments and just seeing all of these different ways that you're moving through this human experience. It's honestly so beautiful. Catch you in the next one. Bye.